when we're debating or having conversations about, hey, maybe no, maybe yes, or whatever, because everyone is not going to get a yes. But
Right.
even for us, it's hard at times because we're still trying to make sure that that person, he or she, is showing that their life has changed from who they once were.
Yeah, I think that's where the value lies, in my opinion, to having
Mhm.
someone like you on the pardon advisory board, someone with that lived experience, also someone who can hear and identify that trauma, identify those things that the folks were going through at the time, but also to really bring into, like, it brings into context for the individual.
Be done. They said we could never make it.
Welcome to the Pardon Me podcast, where our goal is to humanize individuals who served their time in prison and received a gubernatorial or presidential pardon. My name is Joshua Johnson, otherwise known as Former Inmate number 305178. Usually I'm joined by the homie Cam Beats in the Pardon Me corner, but he has some other things going on tonight. So it's just going to be me solo riding out on this episode and interviewing a very special guest. Before we jump into the show, though, I always got to kick the show off with our sponsor, Be Clear Water.
You all know and love our premier alkaline water that's wrapped in sustainable packaging. Well, welcome the new kids on the block. Our watermelon mint and elderberry lemonade are packed with vitamins. It's great tasting and refreshing without the artificial flavors and colors. Life is confusing enough. Let's be clear.
Oh man, every time I take a sip of it, it's like water from heaven. Be Clear Water, family owned, veteran owned, nurse owned, best water out there. I'm really excited today. I've been waiting for a long time, ever since we kicked off the Pardon Me podcast, to get someone on the show, not only that has received a pardon, but now plays a role in the opportunities to give other people pardons. I've been following this brother for years. We were talking on the way here, and he was telling me how we came across each other, and I started thinking back. I was like, man, that's some years ago. Like, and to think about our paths crossed all that time ago, and now here we are having this conversation today. So without further ado, I have to bring the brother Anthony Cooper, otherwise known as Coop, onto the Pardon Me podcast. Welcome to the Pardon Me podcast, Coop.
Oh man, it's a blessing being here. I'm super excited. Definitely been watching you as well, man. I see what you're doing. I see you getting a good word out there. So, man, but you know what? I just thought about something. I need some of that water.
Brother, we're gonna take care of you, man. I got you. I'm gonna get you some up there, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No doubt. And I got to make sure I introduce you properly, man. Anthony Cooper, Chief Executive Officer, President, and founder of the Focused Interruption Organization. Man, I got to make sure you get your flowers in there. And I know too, with Nehemiah, you had a title at Nehemiah as well, and we'll jump into that as we start talking throughout the show here. Yeah. But before, usually when we get started on the show, the homie Cam Beats usually reads the pardon proclamation. I'm gonna try and stumble through it tonight. I may not be as good as Cam Beats. He all in his doctorate program, trying to get all educated on everybody, so he knows how to read these big words. But I'm gonna do my best to read through the pardon proclamation I have here.
Yes, sir.
To all whom these presents come, whereas Anthony B. Cooper Sr. was convicted on July 21st, 1999, of one count of delivering heroin in violation of Section 961.41 of the Wisconsin statutes, one count of vehicle flee, elude officer in violation of Section 346.04 of the Wisconsin statutes, and one count of possess with intent heroin in violation of Section 961.41 of the Wisconsin statutes, Dane County, case number, I ain't going to read the case number, and was sentenced on October 15th, 1999 to 10 years of probation, 1 year in prison, and 4 years in prison, respectfully. Man, Coop, I can't even tell you how happy I am to have you on the show, man. This this has been a dream come true to get you on here to have this conversation. I've been able to see some of the things you do. We follow each other on LinkedIn. When I worked here in state government, I was engaged in activities. We all kind of operate in the same circles in Madison. And there's one thing that, as I was doing my research on you and getting prepared for the show, there was a quote that they did. I don't know if it was NPR or PBS when they interviewed you about getting a pardon, but there was a quote that was in the beginning of the article that said, you have to do more than just say what you're going to do. You actually have to do it. And I'm excited to talk about that today. To kick off the show, the first question we asked, though, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the show, we ask every guest of the Pardon Me podcast this question. Tell us the most insignificant thing you purchased as soon as you got out of prison. So it could be like the day of, the week of, the month of, but the most insignificant thing. Like, we talked to some people, they said a Reese cup. One guy said he bought Jordans, right? I bought deodorant, right? So it's the most insignificant thing that you could think of that you bought when you got released from prison.
You know what? That's a very unique question. I must say, honestly, I couldn't really tell you. I didn't care about junk food. I need to see my babies, man. Honestly, that was it. That was, I think and yeah, that was really it. And you know what? Our most insignificant thing, but I think it's insignificant but significant at the same time, right? Because it was something I want to give my mother a card, but to hand deliver it to her.
Okay.
To send it to her through jail mail, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think you know what I'm saying. I mean, that's why I say it's significant, but just to show my appreciation for my mother, right? You know what I mean? But also for my son's mom as well. So
no, man, that's dope, man. As you think about it, right? We think about it as insignificant. And we ask that question because we like for our audience members, the folks that listen that may not have been engaged with folks who've been justice impacted or, really have never met someone who's come home from prison. We like for them to understand those little things that they may feel are like everyday things that can happen. They're insignificant, but to us, they have some type of significance, right? So you're thinking about, you want to hand deliver a card to your mother or to your kid's mother. Most people will be like, I ain't really, what does that really mean? But when you know the process you got to go through in prison, where you got to get the stamped envelope, you got to put it in there, you got to send it up, then you got to hope it ain't going to get inspected. And then that when your mother or your kid's mother, when they get that mail from you, it has a stamp on the back of it that said it came from the Wisconsin State Prison System, right? So the significance there in the insignificance is this card don't look like it came from prison,
right?
Which is super dope, and for the listeners, to understand and grasp that. So that's a real big thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. You just put me back in a different space of me just thinking, right? You know what I mean? Because it my mother, wonderful woman, phenomenal. She did all that she could, and one of the things that I want to make sure, because I think sometimes even for parents that they sometimes feel it's their fault, right? You know what I mean?
No doubt.
That was one of the things that I can never give back the things my mom have given me just over time. She gave me life, right? You know what I mean? But at the same time, I wanted to really overly explain to my mother, I think through my own journey of being my work life and things of that nature of who I am now, right? You know what I mean? Is a true testament to my mother, right? You know what I mean? But I wanted her to know it wasn't her fault. I made those choices. I did the things that I did, but then also, but I was also going to become something different and better than what many others may have thought I would have become, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah, no, that makes all the sense in the world, man. I think that, it takes me back all the time as well when I think about my mother and father. They had split up. My story is, I've shared my story on the episode before. Both my parents split up, when I was 17 years old, but they, for the 10 years I spent in prison, they took their time out and come to visit. And I think that's the thing too, is I noticed within them that that's the number one thing they did without ever saying it is they always took that burden like it was their fault that I went to prison.
Mhm.
And I always had to tell them, I always had to remind them that, this isn't your fault. Like nothing you could have did caused me to go to prison. I put myself in that situation. I put myself in trouble
Right.
by doing the things I did. I didn't have to do that. And
Mhm.
I still to this day, man, it'll be 20 years that I've been out. And in those 20 years that I've been out, like I still to this day have to let them know that it's not their fault that I
Mhm.
went to prison.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, as a parent, and I'm remember something correctly, you're a parent as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I think that also, I'm pretty sure, we both probably in the same space of like, it helps us as parents to also think about in the way how we navigate our children and being able to have those different types of conversations to, respectfully being able to make sure that they hold themselves accountable, but also making sure that we're guiding that we're guiding some of their decisions in the sense of, hey, I want you to understand that I've been there, so I can talk to you from a different lens, so you never have to go there, right? You
No
know,
doubt.
so I have two boys. My oldest is 26, my youngest is 25. And like and to my even to my son's mom, and I would tell her, she given me two of the best gifts that anyone could have ever given me, right? You know what I mean? In the world is my sons, because I as I say, they're angels. Not saying that they're angels for me. Not saying they're my angels. I want to make sure. I mean, they're good boys. You know what I mean? So one is actually serving in the Navy currently.
That's
And
what's up.
my youngest, he actually just got out of the Army Reserves and currently is a project manager for a construction firm. And so, just to, if anything, to be able to see that, to know that, to see where their life is compared to where my life was, and they've started on a different journey. That's yeah. I mean, if this is what I'm on this earth to do, or a part of it, I think that's a big piece of it for me. That where I continue. I'm sorry, I'm even getting a little emotional even talking.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
When it comes to them, I continue to just, I want to always raise them up, because of the simple fact as us as being Black men, we know the different things that they come, right? We also know the things
Yep.
that go, but also I think even more importantly, we also know that with proper guidance, and also with, if anything, with proper communication, where that can also put us as well, right? So, and knowing that there's no judgment in our conversation, it's a plus. So yeah, but we can talk about that all day. I said, when
No,
did
man, it's all good, man.
it?
I think that's the thing we do, man. Everything we do is for the babies, right? I
Yeah,
always talk about that.
yeah.
I always tell my kids that is, at the end of the day, everything that I do is to make sure that you don't have to experience the things that I experienced,
Mhm.
and that you'll have all the opportunities that I didn't have
That's
to be
right.
successful in life, and make sure that you don't make those same mistakes that I made. Obviously, kids don't understand it, young adults don't understand that, but as they get older, they do get it. They grasp it. They're like, oh, okay, you did this so I could do this, or you did this, or you sacrificed this so I can make this happen.
Mhm.
So no doubt, man. And it's tough to not get emotional when we think about our kids, man, because luckily, I didn't have any kids when I was in prison,
Mhm.
but for those men that I was around for 10 years, like I saw the pain, I saw the anguish that you deal with, whether it's your fault or not, the pain and anguish that you deal with, knowing that your child is out there and you can't protect your child, and
Mhm.
your child is out there, and you don't have the ability to really raise your child, effectively, because you're sitting in prison.
Right.
So no doubt, man. It's deep, man, and it's a deep and good conversation that we have, especially as Black men, as we think about how we can continue to raise our kids to be stronger than we were, and not have to face those same things that we ran into.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me, you led me directly into my first question, where I want to start getting into some context and diving into your experience and diving into the things that you did in prison, or in prior to an end. If you could, like, you know, can you share with us your journey? Like, what led up to you going to prison? We always talk about the fact that there's a story behind everything. Nobody just wakes up one day and says, I'm going to commit crime. Could you
Right.
give us a little background, take us up, what you were going through, give us a snapshot in that time, what got you to that point where you decided to commit crime, or where you got involved in committing crime?
I mean, some of it is that I would kind of, I guess, really summarize it being a project with my environment, right? But then also, I think of also it became the thing that I saw that was accessible, and also that's what I mean, I don't say that was the only thing that what I saw that was possible, because I'll be lying to you. Like I told you even before, you can ask me anything, I'm a straight shooter too. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that where it's kind of like I saw that was more accessible than me. I didn't see 4 years me going to college somewhere. I didn't see trades in my
Right.
like, you know what I'm saying? I didn't see those things to say, okay, hey, these things are possible, because most of those things also had restrictions and so on and so forth around them. I didn't have my high school diploma, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I dropped
Yep.
out of school. It was my fault on dropping out of school, right? You know what I mean? Because I didn't have to. But at the same time, some of the things that I felt that I needed, or the needs that I knew that were in my household, and then you end up adding on. Also, I know, okay, I'm working a job, but also I have a child on the way. Man, you know, I have to make sure, okay, I got to make sure I'm taking care of the things that need to be taken care of,
No
right?
doubt.
So I continue to push forward. This job is not really paying, but also I don't want to struggle, because I know what struggle looks like. I've been through that. I saw my mother go through different challenges and changes that where, it's like, oh no, I can't allow that to also be what I go through as I'm bringing my first son into the world. But and that's saying that selling drugs was the end all be all. But I looked at that as being something, and then I, I looked at it being something to help, and then it ended up being something in that, and I'm using quotations
Yep.
because I saw that being successful, right? The fact that where the little money that I'm getting, then little money becomes big money, then it feels like, oh, okay, all right, this makes sense. So when I'm working as a job, it didn't make sense to me anymore,
Right.
because because I'm sorry, it did make sense, exactly, only sense. You know what I mean? Coins,
Yep.
instead of what I felt like are making some type of lucrative money that at least I can contribute more than what my job was. I'm getting at that time. Oh Lord, I think was it $600 every paycheck. You
I
know
was
what I mean?
gonna say it had to be some low number, man. When you think it back to the '90s. You think it back then.
Exactly.
It ain't Big Bang Hank action back then.
No, sir. No, not at all. Right? You know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then also having the access, right? I'm not originally from Wisconsin, and I say this. People always feel like, all right, oh man, when cats come up here from Chicago, automatically. When my mother moved us from Chicago, my mother was trying to do something different and show us something different. But at the same time, if you look at the numbers, and when you think of just black men in general, right? it- they don't add. It doesn't add up. Every
Right.
black man that
Right.
came to Wisconsin was not saying, "Hey, I have to commit a crime." They're trying to do something different, but end up getting caught up in whatever situation, and then end up the next thing you get as a okay. He's always tell me, he said, "Young blood, you get an X on your back, your whole life is going to change."
Yep. True that.
And that was 100% the truth, right? You know what
Yes,
I
it
mean?
is.
100% the truth, right? And so, um, when and just being able to talk about that journey, that then eventually I get caught up, right? You know what I mean? Someone set me up. All right, this is what it is. During that time, honestly, there was a fire in me, like, oh, right. But during the time of who I became, who I am to today, man, if I was a Cedar brother to this day, I would say thank you, right? Because there's some other options in that too, right? You know what I mean? The other option is I could have got killed. The other option of that is so my sons wouldn't have a father, my mother wouldn't have a son, my sisters would not be able to see their brother, right? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
It's when I think of the other options, prison in some sense, I look at it as though it saved my life, but also I think that where the other, when I look at how life could have been, I'm thinking about the bad side of it, right? But then also now I know what life is. Only thing, something, and I know, well, I'll wait because I know you don't have some other questions, but well, I'll say it now. You can, you can go.
It's all good, man. Let it roll, man. You're getting there.
Because one of the things that what I tell people all the time, I have homeboys, I got guys who I talk to who are in federal prison right now to this day, right? And when I first got a pardon, when I first got, no matter of fact, before I got the pardon, it was a brother, known since I was a youngin, and he had called me. I wouldn't say he wrote me, but he called me. He was like, "Man, I heard that when I first got the humanitarian award in Madison, Wisconsin." And he was just like, "Bro, I'm just proud of you. You know what I mean?" He said, "You've never been a dummy, right? You know what I mean?" But he's a little bit older cat. So you've never been a dummy, but I'm proud of the fact that you never stopped going forward, because when I told people I was done, I was serious. I'm done, right? You know what I mean? I said I'm never going to be back there. But I think more than anything that hopefully that this becomes something that is talked about a lot, and I'm pretty sure everyone's situation is different. But only thing I did is change the hustle. I said I was going to be something different, and I not to say I didn't have hard times, because I applied for 450 jobs and did not get hey, come in for an interview. And then when I did come in for an interview, it's funny. I'm sorry. I'm laughing to myself right now when I'm thinking about this, because they could have got sued. I mean, if I knew what I knew now.
Right, when you look back at it now, you like, hold on, man.
Oh, bro, it was an employer. The guy told me, he said, "Well, how do I know you're not going to sell drugs here?" I said, "Sir, I'm giving my realness, right? I'm like, look, I did come from prison, so I checked the box, right? You know what I'm saying? Came from prison, I did have some work history. I knew how to maintain a job. I knew how to interview. I knew how to. Yeah, I was like, look, sir, I will be here whatever time you need me to be here." But when he said that, I was just like, he's like, well, we're still not going to hire you, but just the mindset of how people think, how some employers think or have thought.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about that and taking it back. Like the idea of, we always hear how we should be given second chances, or
Mhm.
individuals, employers are always looking for workers and they can never find them, and they don't want to hire individuals who've been to prison, because at the end of the day, how do I know you're not going to sell drugs here? Man, I remember when I was a state director of apprenticeship, I had a committee member, a state committee member, who he was a business owner, and he said this stone cold in a meeting, a state committee meeting, when I was trying to push the initiative of connecting individuals prior to release from prison to apprenticeships.
Mhm.
He said straight out, he was like, "I'll be honest with you, I'm more worried about my company ending up on the front page of the newspaper because somebody who's been to prison gets out and commits a crime when I hire him." And I had to tell him straight out. And I looked at him. It was funny because all my staff that were there kind of looked like, "Oh man, here you go, Josh," because they knew what I was going to say. Right? I was like, at the end of the day, somebody's probably stealing from you right now at your company that's never been to
Mhm.
prison. So it's
Exactly.
this ideology that individuals have where they think that just because you've been to prison, you're going to continue to commit crime the rest of your life, not realizing there's individuals who commit crime and have never got caught and will
Mhm.
continue to do crime, which will equal up to more than what we've done in those little spurts of time that we did it. So yeah, it's funny because you're right. They sure could get sued, making, saying some crazy stuff. How do I know you ain't gonna sell drugs? How I know you ain't selling drugs? How do I know you ain't doing anything wrong?
But to what you just said, though, I call it, especially in one of our groups, we call it "Man Up" in Madison. When some of the work that I do around reentry, and so one of the things that I call it the boogeyman syndrome, right?
True
Um,
that.
and I really feel as though people utilize prison to put the boogeyman on everyone who has been to prison, and not
Yeah.
even knowing the history behind it. right? So there are people that are out in the community that we know that I mean, not saying well, you know what I'm saying,
Yep.
have done or still doing and have never been committed because of or just I'm sorry, they've been looked over. I'll say that, right? You know what I mean? Crimes that at times you would think like, okay, hey, why is this person not looked? How has this person not been to jail? Why is this person constantly getting released? Right? And I'm not. Well, I guess I will say, we also going back to how many of us are actually in prison? How do we feel
It's true.
the prison system, right? But I think the other bigger part of that is being able to really challenge what does that really look like? How do we challenge not only our judges and how they are actually making decisions, but also how do we challenge our attorneys, our DAs, as well as our public defenders to making sure our public defenders are fighting for what's right, right? You all the time, not
Yep.
just if I like you, right? Type of ordeal. I'll say this, I'm not sure if you noticed or not. So I also serve on the public defender board as well. So, it makes me just think about what are the questions that are not being asked. And also, when you're giving this young man or this young lady time or behind bars, whether if it's in a county jail or in prison, how much of that do they truly understand what they're actually being locked up for?
It's true. They don't know. We talk about that. I've talked about that before when I've talked to
Yeah.
students or when I've talked to young adults, and I was like, "Man, if you're going to commit a crime, at least know what the punishment is that you're facing if you get caught." Many
Mhm.
times you're out committing crimes, you have no clue. When I was out robbing people, I had no clue that each charge of robbery was 40 years. I had
Mhm.
no clue of that, right? None whatsoever. Like when I
Mhm.
got arrested, they're like, you're facing 420 years. I was like, what? Like I only robbed this many people, but it's 40 years for each one. So yeah, it's educating folks and making sure that they're educated enough that when they're going through this process as well, that they're able to advocate for themselves. And I think that's one of the areas, like definitely where I see the work that you've continued to do and the work you've done. You've really positioned yourself after prison and since your release to put yourself in the mode of an activate or an advocate for individuals, but also activating the systems around those individuals to help support them. As you think about it, we talked about a little bit on the call here before the show. You share with us. Can you share with us? And then I want to dive into your journey after incarceration, like leading up to your pardon. But share with us some of the things that you're doing, working with individuals who've been justice impacted, who are getting jobs, who you've hooked up long time ago, years ago, with opportunities, and they're still doing those opportunities or they're still engaged in them.
Man, it's crazy. Something I do want to make sure it's said. And I'll say this very publicly. God has navigated my life. Period. There's no
Amen. No doubt.
if and buts. So my job, the first job that I got hired at was Papa John's Pizza, and how I got that job was from a homeboy one of my brothers, he was my god brother, that where he ended up working there and was like, look, all right, cool. This is not going to give you what you used to. This is, it was just like, he said,
And this
man,
this after prison, right? This after prison.
right?
Yeah.
He's like, this is not, this is. But I look at everything as being a springboard, right? So having that the opportunity at Papa John's, and then also having an opportunity and going to, I thought was a temporary agency, which was actually a agency that was helping people with disabilities find jobs throughout the community. So I was doing and job placement and also job coaching for Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. And again, my navigation piece was just different, right? Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. I went from Papa John's to Web Crafters. So I worked in a warehouse worked there for a couple of years, and then I was like, all right, this ain't gonna get me to where I want. Ended up going to school, but also in school, and then I ended up going to the agency that I thought was a temporary agency, but ended up being the guy like how I interviewed. We talked, never asked me about my past. Now, mind you, CCAP is still there. He didn't ask me; it wasn't on the application. I did not volunteer it either, right?
Smart man, right?
Ended up being something that I was good at, right? I knew how to look for a job. I knew how to talk with people. I knew how to, to navigate different situations. Knew how to write a resume. So that helped me being able to navigate that, and then also help someone else in doing it. Never really saw myself as being someone, and even in that position, right? I thought, hey, if I find a good job is working at a warehouse, and if I become a manager, fine. As long as I can pay bills and take care of my family, and we'll be okay, right? You know what I mean? And then navigate it from there. And then actually, I ended up becoming a contractor with Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. Worked there, had with my own agency for a while, and then from there, again, another blessing ended up coming. Job market went down, so it's hard to place people in different situations. I actually closed my company down, worked in the health field, and then navigated to actually becoming a recruiter. Or became a national recruiter, and so did that for a couple years, and then I started at Nehemiah. So it was a once I left there, being in the corporate world was cool, but it wasn't all that because I felt like I had to. I don't know. There's a book called "The Spook That Stood by the Door." I felt like I was the spook, right? So I couldn't really be myself in a
Yeah.
lot of those situations, and navigated from that, and then have been at Nehemiah for 11 years, and then Focus Interruption. I started that myself and some others. It's been going on 9 years this year in August. Yeah. So yeah. So this is a
Man.
snapshot. You know what I mean? And so through that time, doing job development, navigating employment, talking to different employers, being able to talk about, hey, look, I'm not going to just drop this and put this person off to you. I want to navigate that life with them and you as an employer. And so being able to help other employers look at people differently, that was one of those things. And because again, I think when I started at Nehemiah, that's when people in the community knew, but or some people in the community knew, but as I started navigating different situations, and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. It's like, hey, man, he presents well. He knows how to do this. He can run a PowerPoint. He can do this, right? You know what I mean? So, like, oh, so who is this guy? But at the same time, not getting into my own past, but also being a person that was helping people with the same lived experience was like, hey, I was making it happen, and continue to do that. And so here I stand today, right? Again, and why, and I continue to say, God is continuing to navigate, and I'm still learning. I feel like He's not done with me yet either, right? So, yeah, man, I sometimes I'm still in awe of where my life has been to where my life was.
Yeah, man, definitely truly blessed, man. I think we all are blessed. So,
Yes, sir.
to be able to be successful, like it takes an amount of preparation. It takes an amount of, for each of us, it has that, the perseverance, it has that will and want. Um, but it also takes, you have to have that blessing. You have to have those things that are helping you, that are kind of guiding the path and clearing some of the things out. And as you tell your story, you really can hear the parts where, like, you essentially kind of just got out of prison. You're just like, all right, I don't want to go back, but I really don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to put myself in situations. And those situations started to turn into opportunities, right? Pop John's, Webcraft, it just started kind of walking you until you were like, all right, I'm going to make something happen. And along that way, it sounds as if you came in contact with many different people and you really kind of focused and helped individuals along the way, not only be successful, but it was also serving you as well.
Mhm.
And I want to dive into a little bit of that. Like, so you served your time in prison. How much time did you serve in prison?
So it ended up being almost 2 years. So what helped me come home early, I ended up going through boot camp.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're not the first. We've had a couple individuals who've come on the show who've gone through the boot camp.
yeah. Oh
Nice.
man, I got to meet some of them brothers. I don't know. I know I've met a couple brothers who are in boot camp either when I was coming or going. Unfortunately, there's some brothers who are, probably end up going back, or some that we just end up losing connection or whatnot. But yeah, man, boot camp. And I know it's changed quite a bit from when I was in there. I know there was some tragedies that have happened or whatnot, but I think there were some things to learn for some people, right? You know what I mean? Even including myself, right? But I think also I think it kind of put their mind frame in a different way. So I already made up my mind I wasn't going back, right? But also I know I needed there was times where I may have cried, and my crying was me pushing, right? You know what I mean? Because I said, look, I can't, because it was easy for me to go and make a phone call, right? During that time in my life, and this is just me, just being honest with you and whoever else is listening, because many brothers and sisters have been in that same spot. It's easy, and hopefully, you know what I'm saying is, it's easy for you to go and rob somebody, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
During a time, right? But my thought was, if I do this, what's going to happen? The same two people that, meaning my sons, my mother, with three, my son's mom, I'm going to let them down. Like when I think of, some people look at, and we know this, that some people may look at prison as being a badge, right? You know what I mean? I tell some of my young cats, like, look, man, I said, that's no badge. I hated being in prison. I literally, my whole thing was, when someone can tell you I ain't gonna cuss like I want to, but I believe in the Lord, I could cuss a little bit too. but at the same time, it's like when someone has fully control over your life. Tell you when you crap, tell you when you can't. You know what I mean? When you can see your
Yep.
family, you can't see your family. Who you can hug, who you can't hug, touch. But so it's just all of those things. That was, and also the embarrassment behind it, that I feel like we don't talk about a lot.
Man.
There's people in prison. I mean, those guards, they saw parts of my body that I've never seen before.
I'm telling you, you think about, folks have no clue, man. You go on a visit, the price you pay to go on a visit is getting butt naked, bending over, and they grabbing on you, and that's your price to go on a visit to see your family members. Is you got to bend over and cough, and they got to go through you, and you like, man, I don't even know who you are. Like, how does this even possible? How does even? Yeah, man. A lot of people don't know that, man. The embarrassment, the emasculation of you. Just thinking about the men, to make sure that you realize that you ain't worth nothing while you in here, that we
Right.
control every aspect of your life. It's unfortunate, and it's really sad. And I know a lot of times the pundits will say, well, if you don't want to go through that, then don't commit a crime. But at the same time, it's like, all right, I committed a crime. I'm dealing with my punishment. Like, do you have to like emasculate me? Do you have to embarrass me? Do you have to make me feel, less than, or should it be the responsibility of the system to make me feel better, and to feel better about who I am, to uplift me and prepare me to get out back into the world? Or do you want me just to dump into the world and remember, dropping my drawers and lifting my nuts, so you can see if I got drugs, so I mean, that's it is, you're hitting it right on point.
So to me, and I will say this, and I've said this on some other occasions as well, prison doesn't necessarily change anyone, right?
It doesn't.
It just doesn't. I mean, everything that what you just said, it does that, right? You know what I mean? But what would prison look like if it was to be able to give people a positive outcome, make them think about what life, who they can actually be, right?
Agreed.
How can they be more productive, not only for themselves but also for the people who are connected to them? But prison in the United States is not set up for that at all, right? You know what I mean? I mean, even so there was it was something in boot camp that it will always stick with me. And in prison you have it, but still they know your first name. You're being called by your first name. But one of the things about, like, in boot camp, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if they've ever changed this. I think it's still the same. Is the fact that where my name was never Anthony, right? You know what I mean? So that's
It was
one
your
thing.
inmate number.
Inmate. No, I'm sorry. No, your name was inmate. Period.
Oh,
Like straight up, like so. No, inmate Cooper. That's who you are.
oh
You,
wow.
you know what I'm saying? So if you can take away, not only, I mean, I do have my inmate number, but at the same time, but you can take away what my mother named me. You know what I'm saying? But so I'm no longer Anthony. I'm inmate Cooper, and that alone, I'm not Mr. Cooper. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Any of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not a nickname, nothing. You're an inmate, and the feeling of just being an inmate helps you. To me, I feel like I'm gonna say for me, it helped me think like, wow, they really cut me down. Like, they took that was also a part of me that they took away. I was like, I can't. So my oldest son, he's Anthony Cooper Jr. Man, I'm sorry, I don't even know why I'm getting emotional, right? You know what I'm saying?
Man, it's all good, man. Hey, you good.
If some way form take away his first name, make him inmate Cooper Jr., that fucks with me. You know what I'm saying?
No, for real.
Yeah, it did. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking about some stuff that I ain't thought about in a while, right? You know what I mean? But we're also constantly reminded. I love this because it's more of a brother talk than, you know. I was like, you know, talk to me. Let's talk, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Yeah, it's you know, we had a sister named Cyrita Stibe from New Orleans. She was one of our guests 2 episodes ago, and she talked about that. She talked about how when they take your name from you and they give you an inmate number, you don't even hear your name for years. And it's a system. It's a system that's been built for so long, and no one realizes like the impact that system has as a whole. So it's deep, man. It's way deeper than we can definitely get on this show. But it's something I'll tell you, man, from the individuals we've had on the show, including you, these are conversations that we've had. And I hope that our listeners start to hear these things and really start to see, like, when we're talking about advocating, when we're talking about why things need to change and how we can help individuals and how we can make sure that when individuals have been to prison, that they have the support they need when they're released. Hopefully people can start understanding that and really seeing like where there's opportunity at there to step in and advocate. Cause it's tough, man. I was inmate number or inmate Johnson or A305178. Like that's who I was for 10 years. And it's tough when you think about it, man, but it's deep, and it evokes those feelings in you, like, man, like, cause then when you put it on somebody else and you, like you said, if they were to call your son that, you'll be like, man, you would feel some type of way. But I think that's why it's so ever important that we have individuals advocating with us and for us. And that is I dare to say it's our responsibility after we've gotten out of prison and we've started to change our lives. It's our responsibility to go back and to make sure that individuals are supported, and to make sure that when individuals get out, that we're helping them and giving them the helping hand that we may not have had. And, you know, and thinking about that, you know, I want to dive into that with you, because you have 2 organizations that you've created, you know what I'm saying, like that you're leaning into and doing great work around. You know, can you share your journey from incarceration to pardon? Like, what made you want to go for a pardon?
You know, I think one of the things, honestly, and I feel like many people in the state of Wisconsin, honestly, I was afraid to go for a pardon because even though that my life, I felt like things were, things have been good, right? You know what I mean? But the other flip side of that is, what happens if you get rejected, right? The possibility is there. So I'm also even in that moment, I was still giving my life. I'm putting my life on the line in a sense, for a positive reason, but it was still a piece of me that was like, man, what if they tell me no?
Ooh.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I was like, okay, I didn't get into a thing of like, oh, they have to do this, or I was just like, I said it was gonna hurt, right? But at the same time, I think that and this is, I feel like you're getting to something I say pretty often. It's like I've been blessed to be a blessing, right? You know what I mean? So I've been blessed as I said, look, if they give it to me, great. If they don't, okay, right? Just keep doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I know that I'm here for a bigger purpose. I know that we are here for a bigger purpose, right? So regardless of what happens, just keep it. The blessing was they end up giving me a pardon. The blessing, even behind that, I end up being able to. They asked me, would I be interested in being on the pardon board? That I think that that threw. I mean, it didn't throw me in a like, oh, like wait a minute. I was like, would I be a part of the pardon board? I was like, yeah, I'll be a part of the pardon board, right? I mean, I've been I believe I'm pretty sure we both have been a part of other stuff just through
Yep.
different communities and things of that nature or whatever. Have navigated stuff through our cities and or whatnot and through the county. But I was like, when they asked me, I was like, sure. Not only will I be a part of the board, yeah, I'll be there, right? And I think that was that also even kind of even helped me to kind of think like, you know what, there's a bigger message in all of this than for it's a blessing that Governor Evers is there. He's the one who opened the pardon board books up, but at the same time, right? So that's another thing. So what happens when he's gone,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, we
So
think about that. We've been talking about that on a couple episodes now
mhm,
is, what happens like and what, there's such an opportunity for us, with Pardon Me to really think about how we can stand in the gap and become
mhm,
advocates for, not only when he's gone, but is there something that even can be changed and adjusted now to give individuals who are currently who been out of prison for 2 or 3 years, but may not ever get off of supervision,
mhm.
and I say ever, but they may not get off in 20 or 30 years. So here in Wisconsin, they're not eligible. So is
Oh,
there something that can even be done throughout this process to make the process better, right? And think about that,
mhm,
how we can support those individuals who are getting out, who are doing great work, and making sure that they also get a chance at that redemption. Because we know that at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's that redemption that we get after receiving a pardon.
mhm. I think really, and I say this often, or have said this too, as far as if you can't vote, you talk to someone who can,
True that.
and you get the word out there, and the reason behind what's the reason why you're supporting that candidate. Those things are important, right? You know what I mean? I have, um, to what you just said. And I know people who will never who are lifers, right? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
so and when I think of that, my thought is, what can that person also do to make sure, hey, I may can't vote, but can you?
Right.
We need you to still show up to the polls. We need you to still volunteer, right? We need you. If not only, I'm saying, we need you to be able to talk about why it's important to making sure that we're getting the right candidate into office. Because if we don't, we're gonna end up with some BS, right? You know what I mean?
All day long.
And if we don't, we're going to start looking like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I got to figure out a way where I need to leave the U.S. Right? I mean, I'm just saying these are conversations that people are having, and I can only imagine, people that are having those same conversations. Like,
Yes.
what is this? What is really going on? Because we're in a stage of, not to get too political, right? But we're in a stage of like, okay, where's this journey in life? What's really happening right now? Because we're in a funk, right? We're in a funk that I think people know it, but no one really knows the outcome of it.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like, all right, so if I can't vote, I need someone that who can. If we're not having a conversation, how can we? If we're not having a conversation, when can we start the conversation? And then also, and also, so if my son, who's even for, and I'm not sure if you got reached where people are listen to your podcast also who are incarcerated. So if your family, if you're incarcerated, you need to be saying, hey, to your son, daughter, whomever, child's mother, wife, mom, or whatever, like, I need you to vote, and these are the reasons why.
Right.
To be able to change that conversation, because we're still, these are people that our age, right, sometimes still feel as though their vote don't count. So we need to be able to change a little bit of all of that, and being able to make sure that that conversation does count, and with the action behind it. Everything that to what you had asked me a little bit earlier, everything that what I've done from working at Papa John's to where I'm at right now, to starting an agency, to being a part of an agency, to being able to change what the agency that I was a part of, what that looked like, and so on and so forth. It was the action, right? You know what I mean? It's the action piece that we're having the conversation, and the action that has to follow is the follow through, right? And the consistency, right? I'm okay. You can tell me no, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try again and say, okay, all right, so this is another.
No just means not right now.
Right,
I'll be back.
Does this work? Right? You know what I mean? Can we try this now differently? Right?
Right.
And I think those are, with all of that, we have to somehow, kind of put that into well, my wife is from Louisiana, so into a gumbo, as I would say. Yeah, she would say, put into a gumbo, and being able to make sure everyone is eating that, right? You know what I mean? Because it's gonna be something in that that's gonna touch someone's soul and make them feel good about, like, oh, I need some more of this so we can get here, and then also now I'm fueled, so I can add on to whatever it is, to the action that needs to be able to change with the communities, to change the community and what they need, right? And having those conversations. I'm proud of you, by the way. I don't know if I said this. I'm just proud of just the fact that you're doing something. To me, this is action, right? You know what I mean?
I appreciate it, man.
You stepped out on faith, and you continue to do something positive, because you could be doing something else, right?
No, I appreciate that, man. I'm humble, man. For me, it's at the end of the day, like I say at the beginning of the show, man, my goal with the podcast really is to humanize individuals.
Mm-hmm.
I think about when I've stood up in front of 10 people or 1,000 people, and I talk about that I've been to prison. I got on a suit and a tie. I might have a bow tie on. I might have an ascot on. I'm up there, looking like $1 million, and the jaws drop and hit the floor when they like, wait a minute, you've been to prison.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like I'm articulate, like I'm able to speak, and I'm not up there, gang banging, or whatever this mentality and idea they have of what individuals look like in prison. And I'm not any of that when I'm standing up there on that stage or in front of individuals. So I'm humbled by that, man. And that's my number one goal, is to humanize individuals who've been to prison. We have to start making sure people realize that just because you've been to prison doesn't change who you are, doesn't change who you can become. Like, it really is an opportunity for us to realize that people are humans, man. We make mistakes. I used to tell, when I spoke at correctional officer conferences, or like the management in corrections speak at their conferences, I used to tell them straight out, man, you are one argument away. You're one drink away. Mm-hmm. You're one driving home drunk away from being just like me. Now, you may not do 10 years like I did, but you're going to have a felony like I had,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm humbled when you tell me that, and I appreciate that, man. I appreciate the flowers, and I'm proud of you as well. And I think, I'm not going to allow you to gloss over like you did. You kind of just slid it in. I know that the listeners probably heard it, and they were like, wait a minute, did he say he got a pardon and now he's on the pardon board? So I ain't gonna let you slide on through that. We gonna hit on that, because there's some power in that. I want to restate that. There's power in that. You got a governor's pardon from Governor Evers.
Mm-hmm.
Then Governor Evers says, would you like to serve on the pardon advisory board? So when you think about it, right, and folks don't know, like when I went up for my pardon, you were in the squares, right? It looked like Hollywood squares on my computer. You had all these folks up there, and you didn't know which one you were going to hit. It was going to hit you with a question when you asked, when you gave your whole rundown about why you earned a pardon, what you've done, so on and so forth. But you went from looking at Hollywood squares to becoming one of the Hollywood squares. On the computer when individuals go for a virtual pardon hearing. Man, tell me about that. Like I got to hear about that, right? You that's one thing that makes you such a dynamic guest and somebody that I've really wanted to talk to, because what did that look like? Like I want to hear about it.
I'm gonna be honest with you. It was, for me, it was eye opening, right? It was like, okay, like, man, you're allowing me to speak into other individuals' lives that who not only look like me, who've navigated life like me, who I mean, even if the crimes are different, it ain't about the crime, it's about you know what that peace looks like, that transformational, what that trauma has been a part of your life, right? I think that it allowed me to be able to really look at, again, going back to what I said, we've been blessed to be a blessing. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? It allows us to be able to, and I feel thankful. I feel being able, because there some of the people, even with the board members that's on the advisory board, are we look at things differently, right? But I think also it allows me to be able to say, hey, look, think about what change looks like for that man. Think about what the
Right.
change may look like for that young lady. And then also being able to say where we're at now and who they are. Because we're not there to we're not trying to put someone back on the stand and say, okay, hey, look, we're trying to sentence someone to, you know what I mean? We're here to be able to talk about life, and with the hope of them being able to talk about who they are now. Not only, I mean, you could say some of the things about, what, because there's some people that may, if you ever listen, these are all public, would ask some of the questions like, okay, hey, look, so what space were you in during that time, right?
Yep.
But also, I think that where what's more important, because we already see what the crime is, but who are you now? Who are you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? For some people, 30 years, right? 30, I think there was a person, I want to say 40, no, 40 years may be stretching it, but I know at least 30 years for an individual but when I think about that, that means there's a couple things, right? One, that this has been a hindrance to that person's life all this time,
Yes.
and the trauma that comes behind that. Then two, what have they done from this point, from their release? And not to say that everything has to be peachy clean, right? There's no such thing as a perfect person. I don't care who you are.
Correct.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's a piece in that to say, okay, look, how have you navigated life to be able to show that you are someone different than from who you were before, right? You know what I mean? That you're making better choices in your life, because that's what it falls down to. That's what it really boils down to. Are you making better choices for your life, for you and your family, or hell, just for you as an individual to be able to be this person? You have some people that have held a job for 20 years because they've been afraid, if I lose this job, I'll probably never get this opportunity again, right? You know what I mean? So, or stay in this corner, or I mean, I'm not knocking McDonald's employees or whatever, but I would just felt like, hey, I can never do anything else but this, because I've had a million doors slammed in my face. But
Right.
something I want to share with you, man, is that a lot of times for a lot of the people, you and others, that gifting is already inside of us, right? You know what I mean? It's the whole thing
It's
of
true.
being able to bring it out. You knew however you did what you did, you know what I'm saying? There was still something in you that knew how to talk. You already had those skills. It's just the whole thing. Once those things are brought out of you, that changes things, right? You know what I mean? Once those things was out of me, I'm high school dropout. I went back to school and things of that nature, but it was still, there were things in that I didn't feel that I could have done. But when I look at it now, I'm like, I could have did high school. Who knows where? Yeah, could have did high school, went to someone's college early on, right? You know what I'm saying? Who knows?
Right.
Who
Right.
knows what this person right here would look like right now, right? You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm thankful for the things I went through to be the person who I am today. So in saying that, I think that's again, that's in those boxes. And when we're debating or having conversations about, hey, maybe no, maybe yes, or whatever, because everyone is not going to get a yes. But
Right.
even for us, it's hard at times because we're still trying to make sure that that person is he or she is showing that their life has changed from who they once were.
Yeah, and I think that's where the value lies, in my opinion, to having someone like you on the pardon advisory board, someone with that lived experience, also someone who can hear and identify that trauma, identify those things that the folks were going through at the time, but also to really bring into, like, it brings into context for the individuals on there. I mean, you got former judges on there, you have attorneys on there, you have former chiefs of police on there, people who we would envision to living almost a perfect life if we were to think about it, right? They more than likely have not committed a crime. They may have gotten speeding tickets or something, or they may have done something when they were juveniles, right? But they've lived a perfect life in that sense. And many times, I think when you live those lives, you become insulated to what life really is for others. And I think having someone like who you on the partner advisory board really is like a tremendous benefit to when they're having these conversations. You're able to step in and say either yay or nay based off of your experience and dealing with individuals. And that's, I'd love to hear those conversations that happen. Like once
No,
the
you don't.
Hollywood squares turn off, like I'd love to hear them conversations. Like, all right, what y'all think? What you think about so and so? They're like, you know what I'm saying? Because I can only imagine that there's more than likely some spirited debate that happens because not everyone that comes through there, as you said, is gonna get a yay. And I know, and this is big shouts out to you as well as Governor Evers and the rest of the Pardon Advisory Board. I've talked about this on previous shows. Like, y'all goal is to not say no. You're trying to find a reason to say yes. And I could tell it's witnessed by the fact that there's over 1,000 people that have been pardoned since Governor Ebers opened up the pardon process, their pardon advisory process. So more than likely, you're trying to find a reason to say yes in everything. So anyone that gets a no, there's more than likely a reason why there was a no. Who knows what that reason is? But I can imagine those conversations that go on once the Hollywood squares turn off, how dynamic they probably are.
Yes, yeah, definitely, man. And they're private conversations, so I keep it that way, but
No doubt.
again, I think that again, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to Governor Evers. I'm thankful even I'm thankful for the members of the advisory board as well, because even for some of them and just having just the discussions and having, side conversations and, being able, so they get a chance to also know me, right? And others and, and being able to navigate. I'm really big on just community and being able to
No
make
doubt.
sure that we are all looked at as vessels, right? And being able to say, you know what, every person, whether you get a pardon or don't, you get one or you don't get one, you still have purpose, right? Don't allow if you get a pardon. I mean, I'm sorry, don't allow if you don't get a pardon to feel as though like, hey, that's the end of your life because it's not.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And when you get a pardon, to know that there's still other things in your life that's going to also that's going to help you to be able to motivate. But I think you can do those in both, and that evens out for me, right? You know what I mean? Because
Yep.
and like I shared earlier, if I didn't get a pardon, I was going to keep doing what I've been doing. I
I
had no
know.
choice. I'm here.
Yeah, that's the thing. I talked to my wife, and it's, when we talked about applying for a pardon, it was a conversation we had. Like, what happens if you don't get it? And a lot of people ask that too. Like, what happens if you don't get it? I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Like, it's not gonna stop me from doing the things that I've been doing. Because at the end of the day, I'm not doing these things for a pardon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing these things for a purpose.
Right. Exactly.
And a pardon just allows me to amplify that purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but not getting a pardon is not going to change my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I said, on when I was in front of the Hollywood Squares, I said, this is an opportunity for me to close the chapter in this book, this 27-year-old book that I've been writing. This gives me the opportunity to close this chapter and to move on with my life. And I think that's where getting your dignity and feeling like, what, this is just something off my back. But there are individuals who do not receive pardons. And, my only hope is if they don't receive a pardon, that they don't allow that to tank them and they don't feel like they don't feel validated, because it's a very vulnerable moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And a lot of times, individuals don't understand how vulnerable it is. We talked about this on my last show with Megan Morrissey. We talked about, like, it unearths so many feelings. It unearths this moment in time where everyone thinks that criminals are just criminals, but most time criminals are criminals because something's going on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking them back to that moment in time. We just talked about it just a little bit ago, right? Taking you back to how you feel when you were sitting in prison. Like, it takes you back to those moments in time. And so many people don't know how to move and navigate through that process. So kudos to you all too, as I watch and I see you all help help individuals navigate through that process.
Yeah, something I want to say, but I think that we should remove the fact of calling them criminals, right? Because
Correct.
they're people, right? You know what I mean?
100%.
And I think that where if and this also goes back to the boogeyman, right? If the only way that I'm addressed is as the boogeyman is a criminal, the boogeyman is this, that, and the other, then you're gonna always see me as a threat. You'll never see me as a changed individual.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? So, I think that where the more and more we normalize saying that man, that woman, you know what I mean, that I know a lot of times Jerome Dillard, I can't believe I was just about to drop like to his name, but we talk about returning citizens, right? But I think we're so much bigger than that. We're so much more than that, right? Where we are people that who add value on this earth, right?
Agreed. So when you think about, like, the fact, like, obviously that's a huge transition, right? Getting a pardon, becoming a part of the Pardon Advisory Board. When you think about the impact that getting the pardon had on your life, personally and professionally, can you share with us a little bit, like, what did that look like for you?
You know what? Because so this is, it may sound, it's kind of funny and embarrassing all at the same time, right? Because I'm like, hey, I'm still going to do what I have to do, right? So I'm like, all right, oh man, I'm excited. And I think that where what made me get more emotional about it, because I've learned that it was more people that were more excited for me than I was excited for myself, even.
Right.
I mean, to what you said, it's like, hey, it's good to be able to have, all right, this is something that is there, but it's off my back, right? You know what I mean? It's a different type of way. It's a different type of way how I can explain it when I'm talking to someone, right? But I think that where, even to this day, I feel like, oh, you know what? I feel like I can move around a little bit differently. But also, I'm also conscious of the fact of just being a black man in America, that can change, right? You know what I mean? So there's a certain way I want to make sure that I'm guarded, but then also there's a certain way that I'm making sure that the things around me are also protected, right? So I hold having a pardon near and dear to my heart, and the strength that comes behind it. But there's the same way as when I'm talking to other folks about not only going for a pardon, but also once you get one, what's a responsibility that you have now that you have one, right? You know what I mean? Those are things, but at the end of the day, I feel good. Man, to all of what I've said and all of what I continue and will do until good Lord take me off this earth, I mean, man, I feel like I'm gonna keep trying to live out the purpose that we have for me, and whatever that next thing is, and whatever that next door is, I'm willing to step into it, knowing that as long as it's the right thing, right? And be honest with you, everything I do, I pray first, right? You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Even when there's challenges, when I went for the pardon, I prayed first. When even before we talked, I prayed like, okay, like Lord, please let me say the things that needs to be said. So hopefully it moves someone else to, if they haven't went for a pardon, if they're just thinking, or maybe even the listeners that, heck, even if Governor Evers is listening, right? Or others, that they're looking at like, oh wow, people's lives have been changed, and what does that change look like? So think about. So I think I just got a letter. I think it was 1,400 people that have been pardoned, if memory serves me correctly, right? And so
Yeah, I was gonna say last time I looked, it was like 1,111, but that was like the last big announcement. So it's more since then, because I
right,
think that
exactly.
was at the end of last year. So it's probably been more since then, and
Right.
it's amazing.
And now think about if people, now I'm talking about, so say 5,000 people, I'm just throwing a number out there, 5,000 people were pardoned, and they continue not to only talk about it, but also continue to be vessels of influence,
Yes,
being able to
yes,
show people. Think about how that 5,000, because we're changing people just by this is two.
yep, yep,
Right? You know what I mean? Think
yep.
about that 5,000, how that 5,000 can change another 5,000. They end up changing 15,000, then 20,000, 30. You know what I mean? The number goes up. So the mind frame of what I can do and who I can become changes everything for everybody. Right.
Agreed,
So
agreed.
yeah, I think that's for me, hopefully, that's something that I would love to be able to see.
Yeah, I mean, well, exponentially, like you just being in on the pardon advisory board allows that opportunity to happen for individuals
Mhm.
that may not have happened. And when we think about it, as you talk about becoming a vessel, we really have to think about what our responsibility is. And I know many times people are like, I just want to do my time, I want to get out and I want to go home. But I always tell people, and I know it's tough because they're shamed, right? They're embarrassed or they're shamed about what they did. And I always say, man, our responsibility is make sure no one else ends up like us.
Mhm.
That's what we have to do, right? So I think about the service that you're providing and the comfort that you're providing. I'll be honest with you, man. And I can be perfectly honest, right? It's a tough situation as a Black man sitting in front to be judged or
Mhm.
evaluated, and you don't see somebody that looks like you on that screen. All you see is individuals who don't look anything like you or who have not grown up like you. So it's comforting to see individuals such as yourself, such as Noble, such as other individuals of color that are on that screen, whether individuals that you're able to look at them and say, whew, all right,
Mhm.
at least I know that I don't feel as if I'm being judged or evaluated by someone that may not even understand the struggles that I went through. And I
Mhm.
think that is our responsibility after we get out of prison. I always talk about this, and my wife always says it, and my wife says it, and other people have said it as well. Everything I do is to pay back society for what I took from it in 1995.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And as people say to me, they're like, brother, your debt is paid. Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about that debt anymore. And I was like, I understand that and I get that, but I'm always going to think about that debt never being paid,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that my community is better than when I was there taking from it. I want to
Mm.
make sure that I'm enriching it. I'm providing resources. I'm doing things that are going to enrich that community, no matter what, even if it's just a little bit. And that's when we talk about the exponentially, right? These conversations, or you being on the partner advisory board, thinking about how that little bit can really help change a life.
Exactly.
There's such a power in it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man.
As we think about, man, I've enjoyed, like, this been there's so much we could talk about and so deep, and
Right.
I'm kind of glad. I'm actually proud of us that we kind of stayed on task, like we
Right.
didn't go, because I was a little worried, man. I know how I can roll, and just from
Right.
talking to you before the call, I was like, oh yeah, this can go left real quick, and we can start going down. This would be a 3-hour show.
Right.
Folks be like, man, listen, man, pardon me, but I got to go. I can't be on there for 3 hours. But
you called me?
yeah, I know, right? They'd be like, I got that, man. But man, this has been really good. As I think about that and I round out like the couple questions that I have here, like one way is, as we're thinking about here at the Pardon Me Podcast, is moving into that lane of advocacy, as I talked about a little bit earlier in the show,
Mhm.
how we can continue to advocate for individuals that are out here that are doing great work that may not be eligible for 20 or 30 years. In your opinion, from someone on the inside, from somebody who's gone through the process and now somebody from on the inside of the process, in what ways do you believe the pardon process can be improved, if any? Right?
Mm.
Do you believe there's any ways that it can be improved to better serve individuals who are seeking that redemption or a second chance? Because that's really what it is for some
Right.
people,
Yeah.
is a second chance at life.
Man, I know if I'll say this because I know many people who are listening, they're probably like, man, like when is this application? Like when are they going to call me? Right? Type of thing. So
Ooh, it's a wait. It's a wait. It's a
you know what I mean?
wait.
So I think probably if we can probably move things along a little bit faster. But I must say this: Governor Evers and the rest of the team are doing the best that they can.
Understood.
I have to, because it's not just hey, let me just read over this application, and then there's background checks, it's all this other stuff. So many different things that have to be pulled in to be able to say, okay, hey, you know what, we want to see, let's see if this person see if he can probably make the part, right? See if he can go past the advisory board. I think the speed of it is probably the main thing, but I think also, I think we need to be able to, at some point, then we're going to have other, I feel like this is going to happen at some point. Hopefully we can have other people who have the same lived experience. Because again, man, I'll say this a million times. If it ends with just me, that's a problem.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I would agree. I would agree with you. 100%. Those two things. The first thing, talking about the time, I know that's the one thing that a lot of people hang up on, and I really talk to them about it, and I let them know. Like even someone like me can say, like, "Well, how fast did you go through?" I was like, "Brother, I went through just as fast as y'all going through. Like, I didn't get expedited, which was, for me, I didn't. Right, even though I was a career executive in state government, right." Governor Evers knew who I was. I ran apprenticeship for the whole state. Like, who didn't know who I was? I still went through the same lengthy process that everybody else does, right? And it's a process. It's not a perfect process, but it's a process. And I think as long as it's a process, it can be improved.
Exactly.
But understanding, and individuals understanding that there was no process until a few years ago, right? So like.
Exactly.
This is better than what we had. It may not be the greatest, which means you mail your stuff in this weekend, today, and then you get to hear and talk to somebody next week. But I also explain to the benefit of the Pardon Advisory Board is, or not to the benefit, but like in defense, like, do y'all understand how many people are submitting applications? It went years without applications. There's thousands. If he pardoned 1,400 people, can you imagine? I'm just going to times the number times 4. That's almost 10,000 applications that have been reviewed. Like, and sometimes it's multiple applications. Sometimes individuals submit it once or twice or 3 times. So, for me, the process was long, but I understood it. And I try to get other individuals to understand that. The second part of yours, I agree, 100% agree, man. You got to get individuals. And hey, man, Governor Evers, if you're listening, hey, I'm available if you want to, invite me on to the Pardon Advisory Board. I definitely bring some experience, lived experience that'll probably be beneficial, to the conversations. But I agree with you. Like, it can't stop with just you, somebody who's been justice impacted, being on there. It needs to be other individuals, so that it is, when I'm sitting in front of the Hollywood squares, I'm being judged by my peer.
Right.
And I think that's right. When we think about the justice system, that's how the justice system has been tilted for far too long, where we don't get judged by our peers. And
And
if you know somebody's on there that has been just like you, I always think about it like this, man. When I walk in a room and I know somebody's been to prison, or I know somebody is, or they're I know they've been just as impacted in some way, whether it was direct or adjacent, the
Mhm.
conversation is different.
Right.
I feel much more comfortable. And I think that's a part of where sometimes people can tell that just in that interaction that you have with them.
Right.
So, I agree. The time thing, that's going to work itself out. I feel like it'll work itself out, but definitely hats off to you all for the great work you've been doing.
Thank you.
But the second part, yes, I would agree. You can't just stop with you.
I want to also add a third part. I think there's something, and of course, I mean, it will probably take some other, navigation, right? But I also think that this having a pardon or the possibility of a pardon, it should be something that is stamped and approved, that we know that the possibility for someone after a certain amount of time that becomes law.
Agreed.
Because a simple thing of something what you said, I do think about the brothers who are still incarcerated 30 years from now, right? And the ones that say, "Man, I may be able to get things in order, but by the time when I come home, I don't have enough time out."
Right. Right.
Excuse
Right.
me, or feel as though I have enough time out.
Yeah.
I think those are, but and again, we don't know what this is going to look like, within the next 10 years. And so, my constant thought is, if we all know there's no such thing as a perfect person, and that, I mean, just that we use that as just the premise, then that's more than a reason for it to be something that is stamped and approved and indoctrinated and through our system, through the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I would agree, man. You got so many individuals who are getting out. I mean, I think just off the top of my head, Shannon Ross, right? That runs the community. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
Shannon.
yeah, no, Shannon.
Uh,
Yeah, of course I
yeah,
do.
I figured you did, man. Everybody knows Shannon, man. But he's been out for 3 years. But he's done such great work, man. Like in 3 years, this brother has been killing the game,
Yeah.
like doing things and being impactful. But he's not available. Yeah, he has 17 more years on supervision, right?
Mhm.
So he's hoping in 17 years that pardons are still available. But you think about it, and you look at individuals like that and you say, he's done all of this in 3 years, like all these things that he's done, he's not going back to prison. He's just not, right? So how do we
Mhm.
change? How do we affect change with that? And that's something that I really want to lean into. Some of the work that I want to do around advocacy is really just try to make sure that we're helping individuals to move that process along, to move their life along, because it's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
I think about, when I opened that letter, man, after I saw y'all, in May of 2023 and then July of 2023, I shared this story on my episode. Like, we were riding back from a family vacation on July 4th, July 5th. I got ding, my email went off, man, and it was in my email, man. And I didn't know if I was to cry, to shout. Like, I just didn't know. Like, it was surreal. It was a surreal moment, man. And I know you know that feeling as well, which makes this so
I
dope
remember
because
yesterday. Yeah.
you know that moment, you felt it. But now you're on the other end, brother. You get to be a part of individuals feeling that feeling. That when we get those letters that say we've been pardoned and it has Governor Evers' signature, it really has Governor Evers and each one of y'all on the Pardon Advisory Board. So, man, I don't even know if you understand the impact of that, right? Like, that feeling, you're able to deliver that feeling to individuals
Mhm.
who are well deserving of it. And I want to make sure we highlight that too, right? Because so many times people think, well, everybody get a pardon. No, you should be deserving. Everybody should be deserving. They should have earned it, right? And actually, I take the word deserving away. When I talk to individuals, I tell them, you don't ever want to go in front of somebody and say, I deserve this.
Right.
It's I earned this. What have I done to
Right.
earn this
100%.
opportunity to sit in front of y'all? And I think so many people have earned it. So those who are getting pardoned have earned it. They've done the things they need to. They paid their debt to society. And now they're getting to have that feeling of like, whew, I can move on with my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And man, because honestly, you just told me something that I don't think I knew at the bottom that it has our names on there at the bottom of the.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But it has Governor Evers, but hypothetically, it has
Yeah,
your name on there
yeah. No,
because
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
everyone that
Yeah,
came in.
I didn't know that. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, but you know it. So in theory, like if they came in front of you
yeah,
and y'all gave them the vote of confidence, y'all name might as well be signed on the bottom of there because y'all are the ones that said yes, they're deserving. Yes, they've earned this opportunity. So it's such a power in that.
yes, sir.
Like when
Yeah.
when you get that and open that letter up and realize those individuals who leaned in and have believed in you. So man, definitely shout out about that, man. It's great work you're doing. And the last question I want to ask you, man, and this is I got to take advantage of the fact that I have somebody that sits on the current Wisconsin Pardon Advisory Board on the Pardon Me podcast.
Okay, all right. I got
Where
to run
we
now. Honey, did you call me?
where our goal is to humanize individuals who've been to prison and have received gubernatorial or presidential pardons. What is your advice for those individuals who are listening to the show that either A, have the ability to apply for a pardon, B, know somebody that have the ability to apply for a pardon, or C, have already applied for a pardon, but they're in that waiting, they're in that 14-month waiting bubble? What is your advice for them as they get prepared or to prepare someone else to sit in front of the Pardon Advisory Board?
What I would say, and if I'm hearing your question correctly, I'm gonna make sure I remember A, B, and C. My gray hairs get to speaking out a little bit. But I think one of the things is I want people to know that we know what you have done. For them to be able to talk about what they have, we know what they've done in their past to be able to earn their felony, right? But
Mhm.
being able to talk about where they are at now, what makes them different from who they were to who they are now, and also being able to talk about the transition period, right? Because I think that where sometimes, depending on how long it was for you and things of that nature, sometimes people will get stuck. It's just like, hey, this is just where I'm at, and this is,
Yeah.
and some people feel like, hey, oh well, I haven't done anything in the community, so I don't want to talk about, I don't really have much to talk about. The fact that you held down a job and you've been, and you're a citizen, you're a taxpaying citizen, that's a lot, right? You know what I mean? Even when
Yes.
you may have stumbled, it is still a lot that you have to offer, right? To say, hey, look, I've been doing what I can. I've not only I pay my taxes, I do, I've worked at XYZ company. I may have stay here for a couple years, and then I left there to work here. Talk about who you are. Going back to what I said earlier, I think that's one of the to me, I think is one of the shining principles for someone to be able to talk about who they are, because who you are right now, many people probably don't even know, right? And so until you decide to share, and especially the pardon board is not going to know, because and in some incidents you're the file, right? You become the file.
Right.
So if you are a file to us in that moment, let's talk about who was not in that file, right? And again, the fact that you're a human being that's doing something different in your life. You're not trying to recommit a crime. You're not going backwards. You're trying to go forward. It's a young man who constantly I've thought about him actually plenty of times, that where I think I kind of said his story a little bit earlier, but it was 30, 40, 30 years. I want to say probably even 32 years, right? And I thought to myself, like, this has been on his mind. And the fact that he's just now being able to get the opportunity to being able to go for a pardon,
Mm.
weight that must took off of him, and then I don't remember whether not if he did or got it. I don't even know if I can talk about that, but what I will say is that that it made me just think the weight that was lifted from that man's soul,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but I think that's the thing that what many people don't necessarily talk about, because it's the same thing for you and I. Think about if you went to go and work somewhere else or work in another city or town or state that who may not know you. And I know for a fact you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it happen, right? You know what
Right.
I mean? But it's the whole thing of you have to re-explain yourself every time, every time. You have to give someone the story time and time and time and time and time again. It's man, and you can and not have anything. You can say the things that you've done, but also in the same breath, you can say, okay, like, man, it gets exhausting. I know even the times I remember the times that have gotten exhausting for me, where I was like, all right, so because no matter what, you're gonna always see me as a drug dealer, no matter what I tell you.
Yep. And it gets to the point of you bring up the fact when I ran for school board here in Germantown,
Mm,
where we live. I ran for school board, and I share this story, and it's so funny, man. I was in Vegas last year for a conference, 5 a.m., but it's 7 a.m. here in
mhm,
Wisconsin. Man, my phone ding, 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 ding is going off, right? All these notifications. Some concerned Germantown citizen, I put in air quotes concerned because they really weren't concerned. They were actually a fool, but they posted on social media about this felon that's running for school board, right? And I'm like, and I'm not
mm,
even a felon, man. What is wrong with y'all? Like, I got a
mhm,
pardon. Like,
mhm.
and then it becomes, oh, he got a pardon so he could run for school board. No, I can run for school board because I received a pardon. Like, and I
You
think
earned that pardon, though, right?
100%. And they don't talk about that.
You earned that.
Yeah, they don't talk about that. It's that crazy governor. You know how that go, man. You already know how that go, right? It's
Yeah.
that crazy governor gave him the pardon, right? Yeah, yeah. I'm saying you get into all that conversation, and it was just so funny because the one thing I didn't do was defend. I just actually said, well, let me actually let you know that I'm actually not a convicted felon anymore. I did receive a governor's pardon. Like,
Mhm.
so just so y'all know, like, just for context here, the second part of it is y'all do realize that I tell the world that I've been to prison. It's not a
Right.
secret. Like,
Right.
it's everywhere. Like, you can Google me. Like, I,
Right.
I I think I said on one of my comments, like, just Google me. Like, if you Googling Joshua Johnson and you ain't pulling up nothing that says that he been to prison, you
Mhm.
spelled my name wrong.
Right.
But I
Yep.
think that's it, right? It's so tough, man. It's so tough because you're right. You're constantly having to explain yourself over and over, and that just gets tiring. For
Mhm.
individuals like me who did something at 17 years old, right? You were 18, 19 years old. Like, we
Mhm.
do things in our teenage years and they just follow us for the rest of our life. I don't feel like, and I will say this, and I staunchly stand on it, there's things in life that we do that we should not have to carry with us for the rest of our lives.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes, there are things that happen. We commit crimes. There are victims, and we never want to discount the victims.
Right. That's right.
But at what point do we realize that the system has to make sure that we don't become a victim as well?
Mhm.
Because now everybody loses.
Mhm.
Now an individual gets out of prison, or now an individual struggles enough that they can't take it, that they can't get that second chance, that redemption, and they turn back to crime and they create more victims. So
Mhm.
it's our responsibility to make sure the individuals feel validated in going through that process. So, man, this has been, the two pieces of advice you just gave, man, are to me so impactful, right? We know who you are, and I want to repeat that. Y'all that are watching this pod or listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, at the end of the day, they know who you were.
Right. Who you were. Right. I was saying, yeah, man, I was going to correct you on
They
that. Yeah.
don't know who you are.
Mhm.
And there's value in sharing that. And the question I actually have, and I just thought about it now, man, how important is it? Because I tell folks this all the time. How important is it to have letters of recommendation from folks?
I feel it's important to be able to make sure you have the letter of recommendation because again, they're character references, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Again, that speaks into who you are today, not who you were, right? You know what I
Yes.
mean? So, it goes along that same storyline. It's not a requirement, but it is something that I think that would definitely help people and help in making the decision to go into the next stage.
Yeah, and that's what when you said that we know who you were, like,
Mhm.
and that's what I think about is those character references that they help make individuals know who you are
Mhm.
now and the things you're doing. Man, Coop, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you. I know we tried to get this scheduled. I was so happy to finally get it scheduled. I'm salty Cam Beats ain't been here. He gonna be mad that he wasn't on this show because I know he would have had 1,000 questions to ask to provide additional context into the conversation. But brother, I appreciate you. I give you your flowers.
Thank you, brother.
100% at the end of the day. I cannot express my sense of gratitude for you. Being up in those Hollywood squares when I went for my pardon, and giving a vote of confidence in the process that I was going through, but also so many over 1,000 others that you may have been a part of. You know, I can't thank you enough for the work that you're continually doing. You know, any last words before I close the show out? We close the show out by reading the rest of the pardon proclamation. But man, I want to open up for any last words that you may have here before we close out.
Again, I'll just say I'm proud of you. I appreciate you. Appreciate you and your team. You know, people. I would just say, people just know that get out there. Even if you do not get a pardon, if that's not even a possibility for whatever reason, know that you have purpose. Know that there are people like myself and others, and people like Josh and others, and not just only in the state of Wisconsin, that throughout the United States, that who want to see you do better, and we believe in you as a whole. And for many of us, and I feel it's okay to say this, we're also willing to also help in whatever way that we can. Just never give up on you, because we're not going to give up on you.
Man, no doubt, no doubt. Words greatly said, and with power.
Yes,
Whereas now, 20 years later, Mr. Cooper has devoted much of his life to serving his community, most recently through his efforts to assist men with their community reentry upon release from prison. Whereas Mr. Cooper has tremendous community support and was recently awarded the 2019 City of Madison's Humanitarian Award for his work developing long-term strategies to reduce community violence. Whereas I find him deserving of extraordinary relief. Now, therefore, I, Tony Evers, Governor of the State of Wisconsin, by the authority vested in me by Article 5, Section 6 of the Wisconsin Constitution, do fully and unconditionally pardon Anthony B. Cooper Sr. of the offenses described above, and restore to him all the rights and privileges which may have been forfeited by him as a result of said offenses. Power.
Man, Lord.
Nothing but power. Nothing but power. Once again, thank you, Anthony, for being a guest on today's show. And as you watch today's show, for those of you who are watching or listening, you once again heard a story of someone who's been successful after incarceration, after receiving a gubernatorial pardon. One thing that we continue to strive to do is to make sure we humanize individuals that have been to prison. We want people to understand that at the end of the day, we are humans. We are people. And at the end of the day, many times, all we're asking for is just a chance, just a chance to prove that we can be who we really want to be. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Pardon Me podcast. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, follow us on all social media channels, Pardon Me, and make sure you also check us out, all the episodes on all streaming platforms. Always remember, at the end of the day, our failure is never an option.
That's right.
For more information about specific pardon requirements and eligibility in your state, visit pardonme22.com and search under the Pardon Resources tab.
The mission of Pardon Me is to inform, motivate, and most importantly, humanize individuals who have made mistakes but have received gubernatorial and presidential pardons. Pardon Me is a brand for those who support second chances.